We're back, and it's time for the Politics Fix with the WashingtonPost.com's Chris Cillizza and MSNBC political analyst Michelle Bernard. Well, that court ruling by that three-judge panel out there, a bipartisan panel in Minnesota, in St. Paul, has ruled it's overwhelming evidence that this guy's been elected fairly. Is that the end of this fight for all practical purposes, Michelle Bernard?
I think for all practical purposes, it is over. I mean, obviously, Norm Coleman is represented by a very good lawyer, Ben Ginsburg. It's his right to appeal this to the Minnesota Supreme Court. I think that's they said that's what they're going to do, and he's going to do so. But if you read snippets of the court's opinion, it looks almost as if the court was looking ahead to the possibility of an appeal and answered all of the possible questions that could come up on an appeal. And basically what they have said is that they could not find any evidence of any systemic problems with how this election was carried out on November 4th. So
and as an attorney, as an attorney, I'm asking you as an attorney, you know this case, this kind of situation. It's very hard to overturn an appellate decision when it's that clearly written, right? I mean, it seems to me as a non-attorney.
It is a three-person panel, unanimous decision, very difficult to overturn. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it is very difficult to see this, especially an opinion that was so well written, to be overturned.
Chris Cillizza, in your writing today, you're reporting on this. You've been hesitant to declare a winner yet. Where are you on this in your reporting?
Well, I agree with Michelle, Chris. For all intents and purposes, this race is over. Now, again, I am not a lawyer, and I am always careful not to predict things that might or might not happen in a legal setting. But look, Norm Coleman brought this election contest believing that he could overturn this 225-vote lead that Al Franken had after the recount. What happened? A unanimous decision against him and a 312-vote deficit. That is obviously not what Norm Coleman was going for. Can they keep pushing it out? Absolutely. I do think, however, you will start to see Republicans who are unified generally, not totally, but generally behind Norm Coleman. If he loses a state Supreme Court appeal and tries to take it federal, I think there's going to be some real consternation. And keep an eye on Tim Pawlenty, who wants to run for president in 2012. See what he does. He's the crucible here. If he signs the election certificate, Al Franken's in the Senate.
Michelle, is that your reading, that the governor won't want to go nationally if this doesn't look like it's going anywhere?
Well, If you look at it from almost a publicity or a PR perspective, given what happened in 2000 with the Florida recount, no one, Republican or Democrat, ever wants to go through that again. If Pawlenty really, has an eye on 2012 and running for president, he's going to want to put this behind him. He does not want to be any of the people that became famous during the Florida recount, back in 2000. He's going to want to put this behind him, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball, but I cannot imagine under any circumstances that the Minnesota Supreme Court is going to overrule this unanimous decision.
We'll come back with Chris Cillizza and Michelle Bernard with some hot new poll numbers. We're back with Chris Cillizza and Michelle Bernard for more of the Politics Fist. But first, let's take a look at this. Let's look at right here. Let's look at what I talked about a minute ago. Let's bring this. President Bush at West Point in 2002. I was arguing about that with Frank Gaffney. Here's what the president said back then. Our cause has always been larger than our nation's defense. We fight as we always fight for a just peace, a peace that favors human liberty. We will defend the peace against threats from terrorists and tyrants. That was the rationale for going into a country, attacking and overtaking a country that had never attacked us, Iraq. Never forget that point. Gaffney was wrong. That's when we internationalized our attitude towards the world. Let's take a look at these new political polls right now. They're from the Politico. They found that big government right now beats big business by 2-1 on the question of who's more trusted to do the right thing. That's a switch. The poll also found that President Obama to be the most credible economic spokesman on his own team. And CNN's new poll, that's the CNN poll, finds nearly 6 out of 10 think that the president has a clear plan to address the recession, which is double the number of people who believe the Republicans have a plan. Chris Cillizza, these numbers, I know you love them. What do you make of them?
I do.
Chris, you love the fact of any number.
It's just the empirical evidence is just, I think, always interesting. And, what you're seeing here is the fact that Barack Obama is using his personal popularity, and he has significant personal popularity. Look at just his favorable numbers. They tend to be in the mid to high 60s. He's using that to leverage against the economy. Now, a lot of people have doubts about the economy on its own, but because they like Barack Obama, they trust Barack Obama. He's using that to say, look, I'm out here, we are doing things on the economy, we are moving, and you're seeing those numbers move up. One other interesting number to look at, Chris, is during the end of the Bush presidency, the right track, wrong direction, the number of people believing the country's off on the wrong direction versus right track was very skewed toward wrong direction. It's still a majority saying wrong direction, but it's moving up. And again, that goes to Barack Obama using that optimism, trying to use that change message to port over to the economy.
Michelle, they don't think the Republicans have a plan, the public.
Well, you know, for a long time now, it would appear that the Republican Party is on defense rather than, running on offense.
Yeah.
At the end of the Bush administration, President Bush disappeared. Who did we see every day? President-elect Barack Obama going out and explaining to the American public what he was doing and how it was going to work, and that's what he did today in a very professorial mode, and people liked it.
Thank you very much, Michelle Bernard. Thank you, Chris Cillizza. Both of you, as always, join us again tomorrow night at 5 and 7 Eastern for more